Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lecture 3, Writing Hacks for Getting Started. I'm Allison Freyberg, and let's dive in. Okay, so here's a few questions for you, little pop quiz. What keeps you from getting started on a paper when you have a writing assignment? What do you do instead of starting? And what have you tried to get started? I know, for example, I'm a very good procrastinator, and I'm also really good at just getting stuck, I have to say. And I know that the things I'll do when I'm trying to get started writing a paper is let's see, I will update my LinkedIn because that's a good use of my time, very professional. I'll be on Twitter because, I can make an hour go away really fast there. Instagram's always great. Maybe I'll throw a little laundry in. What else could I do? Maybe there's some other work I need to do. I'll do that. I'll check my work email. Right? These are all things we do. Oh, get a snack, get some coffee, right? Get a beverage. Hey. These are all things we do when we are getting started, but none of it helps us really move forward in terms of that experience of writing a paper. So there's lots of things that can really keep you from getting started. We're going to talk about that. And what I would like you to do is, as I'm talking through this a little bit, think about the techniques that you have used to get started on projects that have worked for you, because I'm going to offer you a few, but I also, when we get to class together, I want you to be able to offer some other hacks for your colleagues. So let's keep going here. First of all, why do we get writer's block? Or why do we get stuck? Or why can't we start? Everyone always says to me the hardest part of writing is getting started. Okay, and I agree. Although my house is never cleaner than when I have an assignment to do. But I'm going to tell you this, and this kind of harkens back to a little bit of what we talked about in the earlier lectures. You get writer's block because we taught you the wrong way. When you were in those writing classes that you took, what was the first thing you were told to come up with when given a writing assignment? Right? It was a thesis. We talked about this last time. What was the second? You had to make an outline. And as we talked about, the problem with starting with this way is you're going to get stuck because you can't come up with an answer and then an outline for all the supporting reasons for your answer that you never thought of in the first place. At the beginning, of course you're stuck. How could you not be stuck? I don't get it. How could you not be stuck if you're relying on techniques that are essentially built for you to get stuck? What if, as we talked about last time, you started with a topic and a question instead? So that maybe you have a topic, and then what do you want to figure out about that topic? What how or why question can you develop that you can then spend your paper answering? You can put yourself in that space, everything changes. You are no longer blocked. Here's another way of looking at it. You saw this last time, right? You get to that place where you have to develop a how or a why question that's going to guide your analysis. How do you develop that rich question? Well, that's what I want to spend the next few minutes on. The second thing I wanted to talk about before we get to the hacks is another reason why we get writer's block. And I did almost forget this one. And it's because we try to write a paper all at once. We have that screen staring at us. We have maybe all this research we've done. We scribbled a little bit and we're like, okay, now we're going to write a paper. No, you can't write a paper because you can't do a million things at once. Look at all the things you need to remember or that you do when you're writing a paper. Look at them all. So many things. You need to break it down. Okay, I won't start with a thesis or an outline, and I won't try to write a paper. How can I make sure I avoid writer's block? And what can I do when I get stuck? I have a few suggestions for you. I'll call these writing hacks to get started. There's 20 questions, there's free writing, there's something from Writing Analytically, which you should have come across by now, notice, focus, and ranking. Priority 3, Blank Monitor, which is my favorite, and the Talking Cure. And what I want to do now is just introduce them to you. I think the number one thing you need to do in terms of getting to a question you want to help guide your whole analysis is in that production phase, in this early phase of the process of writing a paper, you need to get that critic off your back. Now, there's plenty of time for that critic to be involved. You know, that critic that sits on your shoulder and tells you, oh, this is terrible, tear it up, delete it. There's plenty of time for that critic. This is not the time. This is the time where you need to generate and not judge. Generate, don't judge. One of the ways to do that is with this exercise called 20 questions. Now, if you have a topic, I don't know, let's say your topic is business education. Business education in the next 10 years. That's your topic. Now, what you want to analyze about that topic you don't know yet, right? Because you just kind of go, oh, that kind of interests me. Let's see what we can do. So with the 20 questions hack, what you're going to do is just generate who, what, when, where, why, and how questions about business education in the next 10 years. So here, I'll just yammer at you a little bit. Who's designing business education? Who is taking business education in the next 10 years? Who expects to be taking it? Who is not expected to take business education in the next 10 years? What is business? And I'll go to what's. What is business education? What kinds of business education are there? What kinds of programs are there? What kinds of programs don't exist that people might want to exist? When do people tend to take business programs? When do they graduate? When do they usually start? What time of year? When do they usually finish? When are they excited about business education? Where do they get their business education? Where do they learn? Where in a camera, in a classroom? Where in a car? How are we designing business education? How are we intending to teach it? How are we learning our business education? How does this matter? How does business education matter? Why would we want to do a business degree? Why would employers want us to do a business degree? Why would our loved ones want us to do one? Why wouldn't they want us to do one, but to do some business education? Why now? Why in the next 10 years? Why not the last 10 years? Why am I thinking about 10 years? Why am I not thinking about 5 years? Why am I not thinking about 20 years? Okay. All I did there was list a bunch of questions. And you notice I kind of got a little faster as I got going because they started coming. I didn't answer any. It's not about answering these questions. It's about generating. just letting things happen, getting those questions out there. Now, when it doesn't have to be 20. I mean, I don't even know how many I came up with, but fill a page of questions: who, what, when, where, why, how, what about. And then look over those questions. And I think you'll notice one of two things happening, maybe both things. Either you're going to hit upon a question and you're just like, oh, that question. I'm really kind of interested in that question. Let me kind of try to really deep dive on this question a little bit. Let me hone it. Let me, this. Or as you look across your list of questions, you're going to realize you kind of asked the same thing a bunch of times in a bunch of different ways. Trust yourself. That's what you're interested in. Work on that and try to take that and build a how or a why question. You can't just take the question. You're going to have to hone it, obviously. But you may notice that something keeps coming back. Well, trust yourself. That's what you're interested in. Okay. And that took, what did that take? A few minutes, right? We can just assume that before these writing hacks, you probably spent 45 minutes checking work email, fixing your LinkedIn page, throwing some laundry in, making a snack, making some coffee, remembering that one call you had to make, and doing all that. And 45 minutes is gone, right? And you come back, you sit at the laptop, and there's nothing. So I'm going to use half that time and get you something. 20 questions is one of those ways. Free writing is another way. Now, this is pretty common. You might have heard of this, but this is a technique where you take a topic, and we were doing business education in the next 10 years. And what I would do is give myself 3 minutes and just write the biggest run-on sentence I ever have made in a free write. You just keep writing for 3 minutes. You cannot stop. If you don't know what to write, you just say, I don't, keep writing. You write, I don't know what to write. I'm hungry. I really should have gotten a snack before I started. Oh, that's right. Business education in 10 years. Now, why 10 years? What is so, what's going to be so big about 10 years? Why did I choose that number? Was it completely arbitrary? And I keep writing. Now, these are not bullet points. These are not notes. This is like a 3-minute run-on sentence. Whatever comes to your head, you write it down in one big, ugly, messy, beautiful sentence, paragraph, right? But you don't think a lot. You just let it come. And then you take a break, because believe it or not, writing for 3 minutes straight, whether you're doing it with a pen or with a keyboard or with your thumbs, it gets you a little tired. And take a little break, walk away for a minute, come back, and then read what you wrote. It'll be a mess, right? But there'll be a couple of little tidbits in there that you're like, oh, that's interesting. Grab them. And then you do another 3 minutes with that as your starting point. Another 3-minute free write. Okay. Now, and then at the end, you read that and you're going to have a little more insight. Now, I think it's kind of nice to combine 20 questions with a free write, because if you sort of pull out a question from the 20 questions, and then you do a free write on it, and then you do a second free write on what came out of the first free write. You've spent, let's say if your 20 questions takes 20 minutes, and your free write by definition is only going to take 7 minutes with a 1-minute break. So that's 27 minutes, and I guarantee you are going to have insight. You're not going to have a paper. You're not writing a paper. You're using writing to figure out what you want to write about. And you're going to have something. You're going to have ideas. You're going to have thoughts. Things are going to be there that can help you move forward with that question. So that's number 2, free writing. Number 3 is a little more involved, and this is notice, focus, and ranking. Oh, one thing I do want to say right now is none of these techniques, it's not like all of them are going to be perfect for one person, right? You're going to gravitate towards one or the other. I tend to like notice, focus, and ranking I'm not much of a free writer. So it just sort of depends on what clicks for you. But I hope in this course you actually try these techniques out. So notice, focus, and ranking moves you towards analysis and moves you towards analytical questioning because it moves us away from just reacting to pieces, right? Or texts that we read. How often we're reading a text and, oh, that's silly. Oh, that's I don't agree with that. Or yes, oh, I really agree with this. This is awesome. Right? That's just reacting. Notice, focus, and ranking helps us to move analytically. So what you do is you have a text you're working with. Let's say it's an article on business education prospects for the next 10 years. And what you would do is you divide your page into 3 columns. And about that article, you say what's interesting, what's strange, and what's revealing. And you just fill up those columns with things about that article or that subject matter or that topic that you find interesting, strange, and revealing. You fill up those columns because something that's interesting, that's just kind of interesting. Strange means you really sort of, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. You're estranged from it, right? Revealing because sort of peels that onion and sort of goes, oh, I didn't see that. Oh, now I see that. Right? Fill up those columns with things you notice. Then what you do is you actually, circle a couple in each column. Maybe one column only has one, whatever. But just a couple of the ones that really intrigue you in each column. And then you take those ones that you circled and you rank them in terms of, maybe what's the most important to you? What's really speaking to you? You may not know why, but you know what you're interested in. And so you rank them. And then maybe look at those top 3 and try to figure out, and you already have much more of a focus than you had, this takes about 20 minutes, than you had 20 minutes before, right? So it gets you out of reacting and into analyzing. Notice, focus, and ranking. You can look that up in Writing Analytically as well. They explain it a lot more in depth. Priority 3 is something I came across on a pedagogy site, and I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. This is too easy. This is just a time waster. Well, I was in class one night, and I said, okay, I'm going to try it because I don't know. You never know, right? Most of my learning has come from failure. Okay, I learn things when I mess up all the time. Make 1,000 mistakes a day. But I learned from that. So I tried it. And in priority 3, what you do, whatever the subject matter is, whatever the topic is, business education in the 21st century, and maybe there's some chapters we've read or something like that. Well, each writer will find 3 concepts that were the most important to them about that subject. I don't know what they are, but they were the most important to that writer. But that's not the trick here. The trick is you put those 3 things in order of most importance. So if concept A gets ranked number 1, concept B ranked number 2, concept C ranked number 3. What you then do is I put people in groups where you can talk to someone, and you have to explain to them why you put number 1 in that slot, why you put number 2 in that slot, and why number 2 was more important than number 3, and why number 1 was more important than number 2. It's easy to give people lists. It's not easy to explain how that list got prioritized. What were the reasons that this thing was the most important? What was the reason the second thing was more important than the third thing? And if you can start explaining that, you'll be amazed how far you can move in your thinking, especially when you have to explain it to someone. That's what I did. I put people in groups. I said, you got your rankings. Explain to them why you put that number 1, why you put that number 2, why number 1 beat number 2, why number 2 beat number 3. And I'm like, I'm not expecting much from this. And you know what happened? At the end of class, at the end of that exercise, I think I wanted to give people like 10 minutes or something, but they, the first time I did this, they said, after 10 minutes, they're like, leave us alone. We're busy. We're doing this. And I think it went on for like 30 or 40 minutes. People really got going and they loved it. So I have included it as a getting started hack because it was really effective. Blank monitor. This is the exercise that I recommend to all the people who are the chronic backspacers. You know who you are, where you're writing, you're generating some ideas, and then all of a sudden you stop and you say, is that how I spell that word? And you stop and you backspace, and then you realize, oh, is that comma in the wrong spot? Wait, that doesn't sound right. Wait, wait. And you just backspacing all the time, right? And what happens to that idea that you had? It's gone. And that's not where to begin. Okay, yes, you do have to take care of style issues. Absolutely. This is not when you should be taking care of them. Okay? Because look what's happened. You had you had an idea. And then you had a comma that confused you. And you decided, you backspacers, you decided that that comma was more important. You decided that it was more important than an idea that could have changed the world. And I mean that seriously. You gave up on it. That's a poor decision. So, for the chronic backspacers, what I recommend you do is turn off your monitor for 15 minutes. Or if you have a laptop, cover it. Okay? Or, well, you kind of need a screen to do this exercise. You cover it up so you can't see what you're writing. And then you give yourself 15 minutes. No more than 15 minutes, because then we really do start to repeat ourselves. Um, and also no less than 15 minutes. Because, and again, this was one of those things that I just tried in class one night 100 million years ago. And it turned out people say, hey, at around 8 minutes. Now, you don't have to free write. It's not like you have to be typing the whole time, but you just can't look at your screen, and you let yourself think and you write and see what happens. And what happens is people tell me, the people who are particularly stuck on, always correcting as they go along, at around the 8-minute mark, all of a sudden something changes and they start just letting it come out. And they get a bunch of ideas on the page. And then the timer goes off for 15 minutes and they unmask their screen. And it's a mess. Of course, it's a mess because typing, blah, blah, blah. But they got their thinking going. And, maybe it doesn't even really matter what's on screen because it's more how their thinking got going. And there'll be evidence of that thinking on the screen and you can grab it. But I introduced it as a way to get started. What's interesting is over the years, what students have told me they've done is they don't just use it when they get started anymore. They do blank monitor for 15 minutes when they're stuck somewhere, like on page 8, and they're just stuck. And they just cover their monitor and let themselves go. Now, obviously, that's not something you want to hand in, right? You'll probably erase almost all of it, but you'll have the ideas you've picked out because it's just such a mess. But you will have broken through on your thinking. So I invite the chronic backspacers to try blank monitor. And then the final hack I've got for you is what I call the talking cure. And that's where you just, we're everywhere these days, right? But we always have those things with us. And so what you can do is just 3 different points in the day, just record yourself talking about the subject for 5 minutes. No more than 5 minutes, no fewer than 5 minutes. 5 minutes, just talk. And do that a couple more times during the day. And then at the end of the day, listen to that 15 minutes and see what ideas get going. So if you're more of a talker than a writer, try the talking cure. It gives you a chance to just see where you can go, see where you can talk it through, and then reflect on it at the end of the day. So, one thing to remember when you're generating ideas is you can use these hacks, you can use them in a combination. They're there to get you to start thinking about a subject or a problem. They're there maybe to get you to your question that will guide you through your analysis. You're using writing or talking to figure out the question that's going to guide you. Okay? None of them takes more than a few minutes, and all of them take less time than you would have wasted in the first place checking your work email, doing laundry, getting coffee, getting a snack, taking care of the kids, taking care of the dog. So there they are. There's your recap. We'll talk about them more in class, of course. And these are your writing hacks for getting started. I'll see you in lecture 4.